The Galactic Council had long written Earth off as an insignificant primitive backwater, a forgotten blue dot in a universe teeming with advanced civilizations, powerful fleets, and centuries of spacefaring conquest. To them, Earth was a quaint curiosity at best, a world stuck in its own outdated cycles of war and peace, too small and too weak to matter. But what the Council didn't realize, what no alien power had ever taken seriously, was that Earth still harbored something no other race could match: the relentless, unforgiving spirit of war. The moment the first official Council envoy landed in the ruins of an abandoned city, a place once called New York, on Earth's scarred surface, their arrogance was palpable. Draped in shimmering armor and wielding technology beyond anything humanity could dream of, the envoy's leader looked down with disdain at the ragged group of humans who had gathered to greet them. "We have no interest in primitive worlds," the envoy declared, voice dripping with condescension. "Your planet is irrelevant to galactic affairs. You lack the technology and the unity to pose any threat or value. We shall mark Earth as a non-intervention zone." Those words, meant to humiliate and erase, ignited a fury among the humans who heard them. Earth had been battered by centuries of war, yes, but from that crucible had emerged warriors hardened by fire and forged in resilience. They were survivors, fighters who understood the brutal truth of conflict and the unyielding cost of survival. Captain Elara Morgan stood tall amidst the crowd, her worn battle gear bearing the scars of countless skirmishes. Her eyes burned with the fierce pride of her ancestors. "You think we are weak? You think your fleets and weapons make you invincible? You haven't seen what Earth can do." Her voice, amplified by a makeshift loudspeaker cobbled together from old tech, carried across the ruins. Around her, soldiers, engineers, and civilians alike clenched their fists and nodded. They were ready. Not because they had advanced plasma rifles or hyperdrive starships, none of those, but because they had the grit, the tactics, and the raw determination to fight for their home. The envoy laughed, dismissive. "Primitive tactics won't save you. We wield weapons that can disintegrate cities with a thought." Elara's smile was cold. "Then we'll show you why fire still burns." Weeks later, Earth's defenders had assembled a fleet from salvaged spacecraft, converted old satellites, and whatever technology could be weaponized. They had no hope of matching the Galactic Council's firepower, but they had something the Council underestimated: the chaotic ingenuity of a species that had waged war for millennia, with nothing but guts and determination. As the Council fleet approached Earth's orbit, their massive ships blocking out the sun like dark monoliths, Elara gave the order. "Let them come. We'll make them remember Earth, not as a backwater planet, but as a battleground they'll never forget." The battle that followed was unlike any the galaxy had witnessed. Human ships darted and weaved through the alien armada, using guerrilla tactics honed over centuries. They struck at supply lines, ambushed patrols, and exploited every weakness in the Council's formations. In one desperate encounter near the asteroid belt, the human flagship Resolute found itself surrounded. Outnumbered and outgunned, Elara ordered the crew to initiate an old Earth tactic: the firestorm breakout. They flooded their engines with power, igniting a blazing burst that left a trail of plasma fire as they tore through enemy lines, sowing confusion and chaos. The Galactic Council commanders watched in disbelief as Earth's ragtag fleet inflicted damage and evaded capture. To them, this was supposed to be a swift, humiliating victory. Instead, Earth had become a symbol, a wild card nobody had predicted. Back on the ground, people watched the stars light up with distant explosions and felt a new hope rising. Earth had been written off, but it was fighting back. Not with the best tech, not with the largest fleet, but with something far more dangerous: the unbreakable spirit of war. And the universe was about to learn a hard lesson: never underestimate Earth. The Galactic Council's pride was shattered. Their armada, built from the finest warships the galaxy had to offer, was stung by a planetary militia, wielding scrapped-together ships and age-old tactics. The battle for Earth's orbit was not a decisive clash, but a drawn-out war of attrition, an unexpected thorn in the side of a mighty empire. Captain Elara Morgan sat at the helm of the Resolute, her eyes scanning the chaotic battlefield on the holographic display. Her ship was battered but still flying, its patched-up hull gleaming faintly under the cold stars. Around her, the crew worked tirelessly, hands moving over consoles, their faces etched with exhaustion yet lit by the unyielding spark of hope. "Incoming transmission from Earth Command," the communications officer said, voice tense. Elara nodded. "Patch it through." The screen flickered, revealing General Harold Drake, leader of Earth's planetary defense forces, his voice steady but urgent. "Captain Morgan, we've intercepted intelligence that the Council plans a full-scale orbital bombardment in 3 days. They intend to raise Earth's surface to force a surrender." Lara's jaw clenched. "We won't let that happen. What's their fleet composition?" 3 dreadnoughts, 2 battleships, and a swarm of frigates. They're consolidating around the Lagrange points to begin bombardment. The weight of the threat pressed down on the crew. The Resolute and its allies were no match for that force in direct combat. They needed to outthink the Council, strike before the hammer fell. "We have one advantage," Elara said, voice rising with determination. "The Council expects us to fight conventionally. We won't. We'll hit their supply lines first, cut off their fuel and munitions. Without resupply, their firepower means nothing." Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Kira Voss, nodded rapidly. "There's a mining colony at the Helios asteroid belt they rely on. It's lightly defended." "Perfect," Elara said. "Prepare the strike team. We take the fight to them." The mission was perilous. A small fleet of human fighters and corvettes, led by the Resolute, slipped through asteroid fields and enemy patrols, cloaking their approach in debris and shadow. Every second was a gamble, every movement a dance with death. As they closed in on the mining colony, Elara addressed her crew. "This is not just about destroying resources, it's about sending a message. Earth will fight back no matter the cost." The battle was fierce. Human ships darted through tight asteroid fields, launching precision strikes on supply depots and fuel lines. The Council's defense was swift but disorganized, surprised by the audacity and speed of the attack. Aboard the Resolute, explosions rocked the ship as enemy frigates closed in. The crew worked frantically, patching breaches and returning fire. Elara's voice cut through the chaos. "Hold formation! Focus fire on the energy conduits!" With a final barrage, the mining colony's main energy grid exploded in a brilliant fireball, severing the supply lifeline. The Council fleet's odds just worsened. Back in orbit, the Council commanders seethed. Their carefully planned bombardment was in jeopardy. Without the mining colony's resources, sustaining the siege would be impossible. But Earth's fight was far from over. While the Council scrambled to repair, the humans prepared their next move. In the war room beneath the ruined city of what was once New York, General Harold Drake gathered his commanders. "We've bought time," he said, "but the Council will come back harder. We need to escalate. We need a weapon, something to remind them why war is a human domain." Elara listened from her ship as plans unfolded to convert old orbital defense platforms into mobile artillery capable of launching devastating barrages against enemy ships. It was a gamble, a desperate innovation born of necessity. As days passed, Earth's defenders grew bolder. Civilian factories were repurposed to build weapons, shipyards churned out fighters from salvaged parts, and soldiers trained tirelessly for the coming storm. The Galactic Council, once so certain of victory, now faced a foe unlike any other, one fueled by unyielding resolve, fierce adaptability, and the burning fire of a planet that refused to be forgotten. Elara gazed at the stars outside her viewport. Earth was no longer just a backwater planet. It was a beacon of defiance, and the galaxy was beginning to take notice. The vastness of space stretched endlessly before the Resolute as it limped away from the battered mining colony in the Helios asteroid belt. Though the human strike had dealt a crippling blow to the Galactic Council's supply lines, the cost was high. The Resolute bore new scars from the engagement, burned plating, ruptured conduits, and exhausted crew members who had fought harder than ever before. Captain Elara Morgan stood on the bridge staring at the stars with a mind sharpened by exhaustion and determination. They had delayed the Council's orbital bombardment by weeks, but the fleet was still formidable. The enemy would regroup, bring reinforcements, and press their assault with renewed fury. "We bought time," she said quietly to her tactical officer, Lieutenant Kira Voss, "but the war is far from over." Voss nodded, fingers flying over the tactical display. "Our guerrilla tactics have shaken their confidence, but the Council isn't just going to roll over, they're sending a task force. Dreadnoughts and reinforcements to crush us." Elara clenched her fists. The Council had assumed Earth was a backwater, a forgotten rock unworthy of attention. They hadn't counted on human stubbornness, human fury, the fire that burned inside every soul on this planet. Back on Earth, the atmosphere was tense but electric. The ruins of old cities, battered but alive, became war rooms, factories and training grounds. Civilian engineers worked alongside battle-hardened veterans, repurposing scavenged tech into weapons and starships. General Harold Drake paced before a holographic map showing fleet movements and planetary defences. We can't match the Council's firepower, but we can match their spirit. One of his younger officers, Lieutenant Kara Singh, raised a hand. We've been developing a new weapon system, orbital artillery platforms converted to launch focused plasma salvos. If we can coordinate their fire with our fleet's attacks, we might hold them off. Drake's eyes gleamed with hope. Good. Let's prepare for the next phase. Earth won't fall while there's breath in our lungs. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council fleet regrouped around their battered flagship. Council Admiral Trelac stared at the intelligence reports with growing frustration. These humans, their tactics are unpredictable and ruthless. They have no honour, but they fight with a savage cunning. A subordinate replied cautiously. They lack advanced technology, but compensate with adaptability and sheer willpower. Trelac's face hardened. Then we shall force them into submission. We bring down their orbital defences, then bombard their surface. Once their will is broken, the rebellion will crumble. Back on the Resolute, the crew prepared for what was likely to be the most critical engagement yet. Engineers worked feverishly to repair systems damaged in the last fight, patching hull breaches with whatever materials they could salvage, even strips of duct tape, old wiring and scrap metal. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. Ilara walked among her crew, offering words of encouragement. We're the last line between Earth and destruction. They think us primitive, weak and insignificant. They don't know what we're capable of. Her words kindled a fierce fire in the hearts of the crew. They were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their world's honour. The Resolute and its escort fleet set a course toward the Council's next target, the orbital platforms guarding Earth's skies, the final barrier before a devastating bombardment. This time, the humans would not wait to be destroyed, they would strike first. Lieutenant Voss, Ilara said as the stars streaked past the viewport, plot an intercept course. We hit them hard and fast. Voss nodded, her fingers dancing over the controls. Preparing stealth approach through the asteroid field, Captain. We'll use the terrain for cover. As the fleet edged closer, tension mounted. The Council's orbital platforms were technological marvels, massive structures bristling with heavy weaponry and reinforced shields. Taking them down would be no easy task. But Earth had a secret weapon: unpredictability. In the dark silence of space, the Resolute slipped through the shadows cast by asteroids, cloaking fields of debris and radiation that masked their approach. Smaller corvettes darted through gaps, ready to unleash their fury. Suddenly, the human fleet erupted from hiding. Plasma torpedoes streaked toward the platforms, followed by waves of fighter sorties. The Council's defences blazed to life, firing torrents of laser and missile fire. Explosions rocked the orbital platforms, chunks of metal and debris floating away into space. The battle was fierce, the sky above Earth alight with fire and fury. Ilara barked orders from the bridge. Focus fire on the shield generators. We take them down, we cripple their entire defence. The platforms began to falter under the coordinated assault. The Resolute took heavy damage, but the crew held fast. Back on Earth's surface, civilians looked up to see flashes of battle in orbit, hearts pounding with a mix of fear and hope. In the war rooms beneath the city, General Drake monitored the fight. If the platforms fall, the Council's bombardment will be delayed indefinitely. After hours of brutal combat, the last orbital platform exploded in a fiery cascade. The Council's fleet withdrew, battered and demoralised. Ilara allowed herself a brief smile. Against all odds, Earth had won this battle, but she knew the war was far from over. The Galactic Council would return with greater fury, and when they did, humanity would be ready, not just to survive, but to teach the universe the true meaning of war. The victory over the orbital platform sent a shockwave through the galaxy. Earth, long dismissed as a primitive backwater, had struck a blow that echoed through council chambers and alien battle halls alike. But for Captain Ilara Morgan and her crew aboard the Resolute, there was little time to savour success. The wounds inflicted on their fleet were deep, the toll on their resources devastating, and the Council's wrath was far from spent. As the Resolute limped back toward Earth's atmosphere, the ship groaned beneath the weight of hastily made repairs. Metal plates replaced shattered hull sections, powered by jury-rigged generators that flickered under the stress. The duct tape patches, emblems of human ingenuity and desperation, fluttered faintly in the artificial breeze of the ship's air circulation systems. Engineering reports indicate the forward thrusters will hold, but we're on borrowed time, Jax, the chief engineer, reported, his face streaked with grime and fatigue. If we push any harder, we risk catastrophic failure, Alara nodded, acknowledging the limits of their battered vessel. Then we use what we've got smartly. We don't need to match them ship for ship, just outthink them. Her gaze hardened. Out in the stars, the Galactic Council was already marshalling new forces, dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, and squadrons of elite fighters. Their goal was clear: crush Earth's resistance before it could inspire rebellion across the sectors. Back on Earth, the resistance was transforming. The war had awakened a spirit no one had anticipated. Old rivalries between nations and factions faded beneath the greater threat. Scientists, soldiers, and civilians worked side by side, forging weapons, upgrading ships, and sharing knowledge in a frantic race against time. In a subterranean command centre beneath the ruins of what was once London, General Harold Drake addressed a gathering of commanders and strategists. The room buzzed with tension and hope. "We've seen what the Council fears, the human will to fight," Drake said, "but we must prepare for what's next. Their retaliation will be merciless." One officer raised a question. "What can we do against such overwhelming firepower? Their technology is centuries ahead of ours." Drake's eyes burned with resolve. "We fight with our minds, our unpredictability, our willingness to sacrifice. The Council's greatest mistake was underestimating Earth's capacity for war." Alara returned to the Resolute's bridge as the ship entered Earth's atmosphere, greeted by the sight of sprawling cities rallying around the war effort. Massive factories churned out supplies and new ships. Training grounds echoed with drills. The human spirit was undimmed. "Captain," the communications officer said, "we've received a transmission from Admiral Rillas, leader of the Outer Colony's resistance forces." The screen flickered to life, showing the Admiral's stern face. "Alara, your success has inspired the colonies. We're ready to join the fight. Together we can stretch the Council's forces thin and force them into a war on multiple fronts." Alara smiled. "Then we take the fight to them. We'll show the galaxy that Earth is no backwater. We are the forge from which the future will be forged." As Earth's forces consolidated, Alara and her crew began planning a bold operation. A coordinated strike at the heart of the Galactic Council's logistics hub in the nearby star system of Arcturus. The Council depended on it to supply its fleets across the sector. The mission was risky, deep in enemy territory, heavily guarded, but it was a chance to cripple the enemy's war machine and buy Earth crucial breathing room. The Resolute, accompanied by a fleet of makeshift human vessels, slipped quietly into the shadows of deep space. Every crew member understood the stakes. This was no longer just a fight for Earth's survival, but a battle for humanity's place in the cosmos. Alara's voice resonated over the ship's comms. "Remember, we fight with everything we have. Our lives, our minds, our spirit. We are the fire the Council feared. Let's show them what it means to face humanity." The approach to Arcturus was tense. Enemy patrols thickened, and the fleet moved cautiously, using every scrap of intelligence and stealth technology they could scavenge. Suddenly, alarms blared. The Council's fleet had detected them. "Battle stations!" Alara shouted. The human ships erupted into action, weaving through enemy fire with the agility of fighters, striking at supply ships and communication arrays. The Resolute led the charge, its patched hull glowing faintly beneath the concentrated fire it absorbed. The battle was brutal. Explosions lit the void as torpedoes and plasma blasts tore through ships on both sides. Humans fought with desperate courage, using guerrilla tactics and ambushes to outwit their more powerful foes. Alara coordinated every strike with precision. Target their fuel depots and comms hubs. Cut their supply lines. Hours later, the Council's logistics hub burned in a brilliant inferno, crippled and vulnerable. The human fleet slipped away amidst the chaos, battered but victorious. Back on Earth, news of the strike spread like wildfire. The people celebrated, not because the war was won, but because Earth had declared itself a force the galaxy could no longer ignore. Elara stood on the Resolute's bridge looking out at the stars, feeling the weight of the battles yet to come. "We've turned the tide," she whispered, "but the war has only just begun." The galaxy held its breath. After months of brutal skirmishes, daring raids, and relentless resistance, Earth was no longer a footnote in galactic history. It had become a symbol, a blazing comet of defiance cutting through the cold darkness of the cosmos. The Galactic Council, once so sure of their dominance, now scrambled to contain the unexpected human storm. Captain Elara Morgan stood on the bridge of the Resolute, the ship that had survived against impossible odds, her eyes burning with fierce determination. Every inch of its hull bore the scars of battles past, every creak and groan a testament to the crew's unyielding spirit. "Captain," Lieutenant Kira Voss reported, "our sensors detect the Council's main fleet approaching, faster and larger than anything we've seen." Elara's heart tightened, but she refused to show it. "Prepare the fleet. This will be our defining moment." Word had spread across the human colonies. This was the final stand. Earth's ragtag forces gathered for a confrontation that would decide the fate of not only their planet, but the future of humanity in the galaxy. In the war room beneath the ruined capital, General Harold Drake addressed the assembled commanders. "They come with everything, but they underestimate the heart of humanity, our fury, our will, our unbreakable bond to this world." He looked to Elara's holofeed. "Captain, we place our hopes in you and your crew." The Resolute and its escort moved into position near Earth's orbit. A gauntlet of old satellites, hastily built orbital cannons and ion disruptors, creating a deadly web of defense. The Council fleet emerged from the darkness, its dreadnoughts towering like gods of war. The first salvo lit up space, shields flared, engines roared, and human ships darted between enemy blasts. The battle was a brutal ballet of death and survival. Elara's voice cut through the chaos. "All units, focus on disrupting their formation, hit their communication lines and disable their command ships." Human fighters swarmed like wasps, targeting weak points in the fleet. The Resolute charged headlong into the fray, its patched hull absorbing fire as its crew delivered precise counterattacks. Amid the carnage, the human ingenuity shone brightest. Duct tape patched vital conduits. Jury-rigged energy surges overloaded enemy shields. Pilots flew with reckless courage born from a love for home and freedom. Suddenly, a Council dreadnought unleashed a devastating plasma cannon blast, striking the Resolute's engine core. The ship shuddered violently. "Damage critical," yelled the chief engineer. "We're losing propulsion." Elara's mind raced. Divert all remaining power to the thrusters. Prepare emergency jump if necessary. But the captain refused to retreat. "Not today. We fight." With a roar, the Resolute pushed through the damage, weaving between enemy fire. The crew's coordinated volleys crippled a dreadnought's weapon systems, and fighters overwhelmed the Council's command ship. As the tide turned, Earth's orbital defenses unleashed their fury. Plasma bolts and missile swarms rained down on the Council fleet, forcing it into a chaotic retreat. Hours later, the battlefield was silent save for the distant crackle of dying engines. Earth's defenders stood battered but unbroken. Elara slumped into her command chair, exhaustion washing over her. "We did it," she whispered. General Drake's voice came over the comms, weary but proud. "Earth stands. The Council has learned a harsh lesson. Never underestimate the fire of a backwater planet." The victory was not the end, but the beginning. Earth's triumph sparked rebellion throughout the galaxy. Colonies long suppressed rose in revolt. The Council's grip loosened, and humanity's place among the stars was no longer in question. Years later, as Elara looked back on the war, she understood that Earth's greatest weapon was never technology or firepower. It was something deeper, the indomitable human spirit, the refusal to bow to tyranny, the courage to stand when all seemed lost. From the ashes of war, a new chapter in galactic history began, a chapter written by Earth, the once overlooked backwater planet that taught the universe the true meaning of war.